Welcome back to what last week was the Press Start podcast, until we learned that every gaming podcast in the history of the internet was called the Press Start podcast. So we've since been renamed to Games, News, and Glory. I'm one of your co-hosts, JT Eberhard. With me is my other co-host, porn industry software developer, Nicole. I remember that. And resident French lit major and ex-Mormon missionary, David. Thanks again for coming on the show. And hopefully Jeremiah from the Game Theory and God Theory podcast, along with David, will be joining us later. How is everybody tonight?
We actually just changed our podcast name to Press Start, FYI.
I knew it.
I thought it was a good name, so I stole it.
God damn it.
Press Start 32.
Donald Trump is already getting ready to sue you.
It's actually up, down, left, right, A, B, Press Start.
I thought of that when we were coming up with names. I thought to myself, how can I get that? The
Konami Code podcast.
Yeah.
All right, so while we're waiting on Jeremiah, hopefully to show up, there is something I added to the agenda tonight. And David, I know you, like me, are an altaholic with games.
Yes.
And so I play League of Legends, and I only play one champion, which I'm changing. I used to only play Teemo. And I'm looking for a new one trick, and I have this problem, is that if I play the meta champions, I feel like I'm relying on some advantage that isn't my skill to win. And so I've always drifted away from the meta. Do you guys ever feel that when you're choosing a character?
No, you're sociologically, you're pathological about that. That's weird.
I know.
Like, you're imposing weird limitations on yourself because you want to be the best. It's like trying to beat Pokemon with just a Rattata. It's dumb.
So you don't feel dirty if you play the most overpowered class?
No, I just play whatever looks fun for me. And sometimes it's like it's a merry-go-round with these things. They're never the most overpowered class forever.
Fair.
Yeah, I have to agree. Yeah, whichever one's the funnest. I don't care if it's.
See, I go for fun, but I also have this competitive streak. Like, I want to avoid the meta. Like, I don't want any help from overpowered champions. But at the same time, I take pride in how fast I climb the rank ladder.
That's like drafting Tim Tebow in your fantasy league just so you can say you did it.
And wondering why I'm not winning.
Right, exactly.
All right, so let's start out with a kind of a funner and more enjoyable question. This is so not quite as deep. Which Final Fantasy game had the best mini game? David.
Oh man, best mini game? It's got to go to 8. That was the best part about Final Fantasy.
Triple Triad?
Fucking Triple Triad, man. I've got that game on my phone now.
Oh man, I've got to get that too because I want to play you at it. But yeah, I remember not even playing the Final Fantasy VIII game and just spending hours on end playing Triple Triad.
Jeremiah ditched us in the middle of a hideous dodgeball game. Like we were super into dodgeball, as most high school kids were, because it's like the only fun thing we ever do in gym class. We were in this dodgeball tournament, and Tim and I were killing it, but we needed somebody with a good arm, and that somebody was Jeremiah. So we call him during one of the breaks between games. You know what he was doing? He didn't even bother to hide it. He was trying to get the ward card from Final Fantasy VIII. The ward card, not even a great card, just a card he was really trying really hard to get. He could not come help us out.
Did you ever play Final Fantasy VIII, Nicole?
I did. I didn't finish it, but I didn't know that's what that was called. But I was going to say the card game from
the card game. Okay. All right, Nicole. So why was Triple Triad, the card game from VIII, better than Blitzball from Final Fantasy X?
I didn't like the controls on Blitzball, personally.
Yeah, I will say Blitzball was more fun than the rest of Final Fantasy X. Like it kind of, I never finished 10 because I just became a Blitzball master at the end of that. Like that story was way more interesting to me. It had probably because it had less voice acting than the actual story.
You encountered Sin and just throw a Blitzball at him, and you're so good by then you kill him.
Yeah, I was basically real life Waka.
By
the way, that was a real character's name in Final Fantasy X, just to remind you how terrible that game was.
Okay, we'll get to talk about that one later. Then let's talk about it now, because is that just a personal preference, or do you?
Yeah,
feel like
I know. I'm in the minority. A lot of people love Final Fantasy X. The voice acting was terrible. The story, like the costume design, was weird. Like, what's with the long shorts, like on one leg and short on the other? You could not make a protagonist I cared less about than Yuna and Titus.
Okay, hang on. Jeremiah just logged on. Okay, there we go. So hopefully Jeremiah will be here soon. Okay, yeah. Okay, Titus was not the best hero, but surely you enjoyed the plot. Like, it's got very anti-religion undertones.
where the bad guy turns out to be your father secretly. I'd never seen that before.
Didn't we talk about that last week?
No, that's impossible.
Okay,
Mark Hamill was a better voice actor.
Can you name me part of the Final Fantasy X that you liked? What did they get right?
Lula.
What?
I thought she was very sexually progressive.
Hell yeah.
What are we talking about?
Final Fantasy X and all the good parts about it.
See, I like games like that. I like, sometimes people complain about an RPG, like, oh, it feels like it's just taking you on a tour because it's too linear. But if the story is good and the music is engaging and the world is built in a way that you are really immersed, like, I want to be taken on that tour. And for that reason, I really liked Final Fantasy X. I'm guessing that doesn't appeal to you.
No, I like good story too, but to me, good story is about good characters and not just like interesting settings or strange plot twists. So Final Fantasy X fell short on that level.
Okay, so here's Jeremiah. Jeremiah, without listening to any of the rest of the podcast so far, are you with us?
Yes.
Which Final Fantasy game had the best mini game? You two can it.
Oh, FF8.
Geezard.
Blitzball.
David told us
FF10. I lied.
Oh, really? You think Blitzball was better?
Blitzball, yeah.
Blitzball. David tells us that you once ditched a dodgeball game in order to get the ward card, was it?
Oh, yes. I'm now living in infamy because of that.
There's zero remorse, though. He would do the same thing today.
But by far, I think Blitzball is the way to go. Hello, here's my face.
All right. So David didn't like Final Fantasy X. We were talking about, what was your take on Final Fantasy X?
Dude, it was good. David's a hater.
I gotta hate. But
it wasn't that bad. I like it.
Give your credentials. What game did you start but never finish in the Final Fantasy franchise?
6?
Yeah, FF6. Couldn't get into it.
Whoa.
Well, okay, to be fair, let's talk about nostalgia because it's a bitch. The thing about so FF6 when it came out was awesome because it was legendary, it had good writing, and it was overall had a lot to offer, right? Well, the things it didn't do so well is going to be like grinding levels up, things like that. Just that old RPG style of like walking around and random encounters didn't preserve itself well. So there's a lot to pick about it for a modern audience, and I came from a modern audience, so really it's more about context than it is about the quality of gameplay.
But weren't those aspects of FF10?
Yeah, but when I played FF10 as soon as it came out, so.
Tell you what, let's walk through the progression of the Final Fantasy games and get us up to Triple Triad, Blitzball, and Final Fantasy X. Let's start with Final Fantasy I for the NES. Probably the game, aside from probably Dragon Warrior, that most moved the RPG genre forward. Question number 1, start with Nicole. Was Final Fantasy I a good game?
I was one of the people who did not play Final Fantasy until the big blow up of 7. I didn't have any of those. We didn't have any of those games. Like we had Dragon Warrior, and I remember playing it a little bit with my brother, but I didn't really. I was more Zelda.
So you're going back at it from the modern perspective, like Jeremiah talked about with 6.
Right. Yeah, I got them for like my PSP, and then I think later they released like a big thing on Vita or something like that, and I picked it up to see. And I still didn't finish like any of those earlier ones, but I thought it was a good game. My favorite is Chrono Trigger, which is
that was great. We could do a whole episode on Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
And what that did for the entire genre. All right. So is there a huge difference then? Coming up in the age where we first got Nintendo and seeing how game design in RPGs improved. Like, because for those of us who played Final Fantasy I, we can see all the innovations it brought. And if you go back now, you're just seeing all the innovations we've gotten since then that aren't included, right? So is it possible to enjoy it now like we did back then?
Yes. I think its biggest problem on RPGs currently, or at least previously, and still some problem currently, is pacing. There's this thing in game design, pacing, or in movies and stuff. I'm not a director. I don't know a shit about that. But the pacing is really slow in an RPG. It's a very abbreviated story with like a lot of like, just because by the nature of leveling and how slowly many of them do it to kind of pad out their games, you end up just doing things a lot that's the combat's got to be fun enough to carry that system, and a lot of times it isn't. We're used to that turn-based style now. So I think if they would work on their pacing, they'd almost become more of an adventure game. So it almost brings you outside of the category, but it does. I think 100% that's what they need to do, because RPG elements in general was carrying that genre for a while. The fact that you could level up and that you had stats and things. The other games a lot of times didn't do that at the time. So now I think that other games are borrowing RPG styles. We're seeing the glaring holes in the old JRPG eras.
You mentioned that last week, how most modern games are including some kind of leveling up RPG elements. Like Tomb Raider, I think, was the example you used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, David, Final Fantasy 1, good game? Or
Yeah.
just so new that it caught on?
It's all right. It's not a game I'd go back and play again. Like, the test for me to see if a game is more nostalgia than replay value is if I can go back with my 2016 perspective and still enjoy it. And Final Fantasy 1 isn't one that I can do that with. It's got a good soundtrack, but it's just not. The story is too basic. You know, it's like get the 4 elemental crystals, which was novel at the time, but it's just been reused so much since then. So yeah, I'd say it was an important game, but not a great game by today's standards.
Okay, so Final Fantasy 1 is a huge hit. The RPG idea catches on in the United States. Now, we don't get Final Fantasy 2 and 3. Those stay in Japan. But then the Super Nintendo comes out, and boom, we get Final Fantasy 4. No longer just generic hero character. We have strictly defined characters with personalities and dreams and goals and different skills.
And
what was
tragic deaths
and tragic deaths and bards and
Spoiler!
spooky bards.
Not just any bards, spoony bards. Yes.
All right, so David, when Final Fantasy 4 came out, did it blow your mind?
You know what? It was my first RPG like that I really played. I had to go back and play Final Fantasy 1 later, and I really liked it. I didn't like it as much as Tim, your brother, who's like quite enamored of it. But this is a game that when it got re-released with better graphics, I went back and played it all the way through, and I still had fun with it.
Jeremiah, Final Fantasy 4.
I played it after as well, and I didn't finish it, so it's tough to say. Yeah, I mean, I think it had a lot of charm. Honestly, I think it had. I don't know. You know, it'd be interesting to hear from you guys because you played these in order. I played 6 and then 4, and I didn't finish 6. And I played 4, and it struck me as similarly charming, and I liked the world. So I don't understand why it didn't get as much hype as 6 did, to be honest with you.
Weren't they released in like a backwards order or something over here? Are
They
they
were
released
released-
different?
2 and 3 here in the States.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 4 was Final Fantasy 2 upon its initial release here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It
Okay.
was the second one we all played.
I gotcha.
Did you play that one, Nicole?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay, well, Jeremiah, you want to hear what I think? It blew my goddamn mind when I played that for Super Nintendo. It did, like, you know, the characters in Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior in all those games were just generic knight, generic mage.
Fighter.
Thought of them more as a class than a character, right? But all of a sudden Final Fantasy 4 comes out, and all of a sudden it feels like you've been drawn into a book with an actual story, and a damn good story, and there's intrigue, and you're connected to these characters, and it's got this big epic finish. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen at the time. Yeah, it was incredible to me.
So at the time, chronologically, was there anything before that had done that? I can't think of the era.
Think of anything. I really can't.
There might have been some indie game that did things like that, but this is the first one I'd played.
Yeah, even Dragon Warrior like 3, 4, like as you get into like, you know, Dragon Warrior 69, like as those just spiraled out of control, you still didn't get characters that had deep, intriguing stories and who looked different, significantly different from everybody else in the world.
The story beat of like slowly realizing that you're working for an evil organization is a really strong one for me. It was one of the things that sets that game apart.
Yeah, the scene where Cecil stops being a Dark Knight and transitions into the Paladin is just golden.
Although while we're on the subject, can we just point out Final Fantasy is the worst at naming characters?
Yes,
like
it is.
Cecil the Paladin, a Knight of Holiness, Cloud,
I give you that.
Storm, Cloud,
Lightning, Lulu.
Okay, so Final Fantasy 2 hits us, which is actually Final Fantasy 4. A few years later, we come into the golden, what often referred to as the golden age of RPGs. You have Chrono Trigger came out in the same year as
Never heard
Final
of it.
Fantasy 6. You have the Lufia games. You have Earthbound, Secret of Mana, Zelda: A Link to the Past. So Before we get into Final Fantasy VI, has there ever been another time for RPGs like that little 2-year period where we got all these incredible games? Let's start with Nicole.
No, I guess is the answer.
All right, since Nicole's gone AWOL, David, has there ever been a time for RPGs like there was during that period when we got Final Fantasy III?
Okay, this is a hard question because when you ask me if about anything from that period of my life, it was the best. Like the cartoons were the best, the music was the best, the fashion was the best
band to ever live.
It's just
Sex was the best.
Sex. Like, sex was amazing, I imagine. Like everything has those rose-tinted glasses from when you were. It's why generally people prefer the music that came out while they were in high school. And for me, the games that came out, like I've enjoyed RPGs less, but I also enjoy like the cartoons I used to watch less. I don't know if my tastes have changed or matured, or if the games have gotten worse. Now we have kind of transitioned into more of a Western RPG market in recent years, which I don't like as much. That might be part of it, but it's really hard to tell if the games were that much better or if I was just a 15-year-old kid and everything was amazing.
Jeremiah, Golden Age, anything like it since?
It's hard to say because, like we were saying, RPGs kind of got consumed by the other categories, so it's really difficult to say because since then, yeah, I mean, there have been a series of games that fucking rocked my ass off in modern ages.
The line has blurred in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. So it's hard to say, but honestly, I think no. That was the coming of age where, remember, Japan didn't think we were a market for RPGs. They were like, they're not going to like this. They're American and stupid, which is partly true. But some of us are awesome. And so we were like, when it came out, they were like, oh, wait, you guys like this? And so they just exported all these great games, JRPGs. And then America was like, wait a minute, you guys like this? And then started doing their thing. But I think, so no, I don't think so. I think it was the explosion. It's that first, it's almost like when virtual reality became like a thing to talk about in movies and theater. My God, or movies and video games. My God, it was every game fucking about that, And so it was like that, because they need to test the upper limit. It's like superhero movies right now. Arguably, that's reaching its apex, and it's going to start dialing back. Maybe not, but the point is it's flooding the market, and I think that's what happened with RPGs. There was a lot of terrible ones at the time, but there were also many good ones.
Yeah, remember Earthbound almost didn't get released over here because they thought it'd be too hard for us, and then the compromise was we'll make a funny, goofy marketing campaign and release a player's guide with it.
What was that one? The Silver Star story. What's the main title?
Lunar, Silver Star.
Lunar, yeah,
so good.
That game got re-released on the iPhone, and I've been replaying it. And that game still holds up too. I'm
Nash,
freaking Nash. Special delivery.
All right, Nicole, back with the release of Final Fantasy III in the United States. We had the golden age of RPGs. Like I said earlier, we had Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, the Lufia games, Earthbound, Secret of Mana, Link to the Past. Do you think there's ever been an age where we got so many quality RPGs in such a small amount of time?
Yeah, I don't know how much you guys heard, but I've said I didn't know when Phantasy Star series or not Dragon Warrior,
Dude, Phantasy Star 3 for Genesis came out around the same time, too.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Then
no, sorry, Phantasy Star 4. That was the big one for Genesis, right?
Mm-hmm. 4.
Yeah.
That came out then.
Dragon's Quest was like those
about the same time, yeah.
That was
There's
insane.
a few in there that for some reason those are still around as well, just like Final Fantasies. But even though I think they do have big followings, because I see them advertised everywhere and stuff like that, and I still play some of them, they just don't seem to, for some reason, Final Fantasy just seems to be like that thing, everybody knows about it. But if you say one of the other ones, usually people don't know what you're talking about.
Final Fantasy being it at the time, Final Fantasy III hits the United States, and pretty much everything Final Fantasy II did, this one cranks up to 11. We have more characters. Their stories are deeper. The soundtrack is considered one of the greatest soundtracks ever composed for any game of all time.
Smash Bros.
Smash Bros.
Good. All right, go ahead. No,
David, we'll start with you because I know what you're going to say here. Was Final Fantasy VI the masterpiece it's made out to be?
It's still the highlight of the series for me. The ensemble cast, the surprisingly progressive choice of female protagonists as one of the main characters. But when I say one of the main characters, what I like about that story is it's hard to pick a main character because each of them have compelling stories that you can choose to follow. Like the weak point a lot of people point out is the World of Ruin section of the game feels a little bit too disjointed. Like it's just a bunch of mini quests that aren't related. But I kind of like that open world feel after the railroading through the first half of the game. It kind of lets you just play the game at your own pace and decide how much of it you want to explore before you fight Kefka.
It does, and it felt like they filled the world. Like they didn't just let you go anywhere.
It wasn't just a bunch of empty space like a Fallout game where it's just a lot of like the Western RPGs like that where it's just like, look at our immense world. What's in it? A lot of gray and brown and some mutant cockroaches. Okay, like you'll find story things in Fallout, but it's not so densely packed as in Final Fantasy VI, which just had something going on in every town and something going on with every character. And the way that speaking of the soundtrack, the way that they meld every character's theme, the one big orchestral medley at the end of the game was beautiful. It's my favorite part of the game.
All right, so Jeremiah, you went back later and played it through the dark tinted goggles of modernization. Yeah. And yet you didn't care for it as much.
Well, I feel like I think it was really strong, and this is me. I understand I'm about to enter blasphemy territory. This is like me saying, but I played Chrono Trigger. We replayed that for our summer book club, and it still holds up. It's solid as shit. I mean, the pacing's fantastic, the music, the cutscenes, it's all amazing. FF6 I played right around the same time, and it did not. And so I don't want to be blasphemous. At the time, it was probably the greatest game.
No, we just hate you. That's all. But
and the world is cool. I'm on the Chrono Trigger train, so I'm with you.
Chrono Trigger was a masterpiece. No one denies that Chrono Trigger was a masterpiece. So why did Chrono Trigger hold up, and what failed with Final Fantasy VI?
I think it was pacing, man. Like, okay, so FF6 was strong all the way up through Figaro Castle. I was intrigued. I was pulled in. I was like, who's this motherfucking Kefka character? And why is he so crazy? Right? And then I liked the main character. I like Gavilan. What's Gavilan's name? Figaro Castle? Edgar. Okay.
Yes.
I was renaming him. I'm sorry. And then Locke is
That is
cool.
something I missed from that era, though. With all the voice acting, you can't rename the characters anymore.
Yeah,
we can't
their names are locked in now.
Or after all your friends, or the girl you had a crush on in middle school.
And the whole idea of it is like this princess girl that was like, caught and like used against her will, Magitech. That whole setting's so sweet.
Yeah, that's steampunk.
That pacing falls off like a motherfucker after you meet Shadow. Shadow? Is that his name?
Yeah, the ninja.
So you're talking about when the story branches into 3 parts, and you can do Sabin, Locke, and
yeah.
Because Sabin's quest is a little bit long compared to
that one especially is where it really tries. And then I don't know, like I could never get much past that. I did get past. I think I got past the 3-person part, but it just drags, and I want to be involved in it. Same thing happened to FF12, for example. I love that world and those characters. So cool. Balthier, one of the greatest Final Fantasy characters of all time. Loved it. But and the idea was cool. It's this overthrow of a kingdom. It's the rebel factions. Everything about it is resonates true with a Western audience. But I think storylines were solid all the way up to FF7. Then it got a little weird, and we're going to talk about that. And then after that, they kept adding in weird shit into their stories where you're like, wait, what? I didn't understand what the point of it was. And so I think with FF6, it wasn't that. It was solid, as far as I can tell, the story. But that pacing, though, like something about it just started falling off. And it didn't have that same – it didn't have the job system that it had in FF4 where you can, get the white mage and red mage.
I think you mean the dress sphere system.
10 or 12 2? No, 10 2.
10 2.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that later, don't worry.
Right.
Okay, so before we go on, which character did you name after yourself in that game?
I was Locke.
You were Locke?
I didn't have a character on this one.
Really?
It's weird.
I named myself after Go-Go in that game. So, Nicole, did you play Final Fantasy VI?
I did not.
Okay. So, moving on, we get Final Fantasy VII, often credited with being a huge turning point in the development of RPGs, but there's mixed reviews. Like, at the time, everybody thought it was great, but in retrospect, a lot of people don't think it was as good as we thought it was. Nicole, did you play Final Fantasy VII?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what is your take? Was it the masterpiece it's made out to be? Was it good but flawed?
Well, I think every game is good but flawed. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I have a friend who I would call a Final Fantasy purist who he he gets like, flames on the side of his face when we talk about that, because when I say that one was my favorite before, playing like a few others, that's not a Final Fantasy game. He freaks out on me. Oh yeah, he hates that.
Well, he's objectively wrong.
Yeah, I don't get into that whole, how some gamers are with their things.
Like sports fans with their sports ball teams.
Exactly.
They get very, very passionate. David, Final Fantasy VII. What are your memories of it? And do you think, of all the Final Fantasy games, does it deserve a remake? Is it the masterpiece that people say that it was?
Okay, I'm gonna preface this by saying I'm very excited for the remake. I'm looking forward to it a lot. Here are the pros from Final Fantasy VII. One of the best soundtracks of the series, Final Fantasy VII.
Amen.
Interesting characters. Each of the characters, like this, from a design perspective, are really cool, and I want to know more about them.
Barrett,
yeah. Barrett would definitely need a retouch on his dialogue to make it a little more
correct. Now you mentioned the music, and I thought one of the genius parts of the music in Final Fantasy VII is Nobuo Uematsu is known for these huge, rich harmonies, these melodies that stay with you. And because for most of the game we're in this kind of dystopian society, it's a huge departure from all the rich harmonies he used in previous games. He uses a lot of open chords, so you feel like everything's just kind of floating and not going anywhere.
Yeah, kind of unresolved.
You're in this broken down world, so that by the time you get to the end and you hit the Sephiroth theme, which goes back to these huge orchestra numbers and introduces a lot of these dissonant harmonies and the way he resolves them, then that song hits you even harder, and you're like, oh shit, this is huge. Now it's about to get real.
So one thing, my theory with Final Fantasy VII is that people who it was their introduction to the franchise are always going to have it as their favorite game, because it opened up the JRPG market to a lot of people who had never been exposed to it, and it's always going to have a special place in their hearts for that reason. I do challenge any fan of FF7 to tell me what the storyline is, like, succinctly, because it is so convoluted. Like, something about Mako, and you're like a clone maybe with your memory reprogrammed of Sephiroth, and there's like a Genosha evolved, or Genova, or whatever her name was. Like, there's so much weird. Like, it starts off like pretty focused, like you're an ex-mercenary badass with no memory, and you're out to fight the system, and you're gonna blow up a fucking factory. It's awesome. And then, like, it really loses a lot of focus to the point where I don't even remember what happened. I remember I had to cross-dress as a prostitute at one point to save Tifa. I remember some of the major story beats, but this is why I'm looking forward to the remake, because it sounds like they're going to take a lot of time and go through, like, it's not going to be the same Final Fantasy VII we remember. So if they can take those characters and those essential themes and make it a better, like, tighter story, I think it's going to be a really successful game.
Something I've noticed from the early Final Fantasy games is that the environments became progressively richer and the worlds better defined as the franchise moved forward. And me with Guild Wars 2, that's a lot of the reason I like that game, is the world has such detail and is so immersive. I really do feel like a part of it. And for me, Final Fantasy 3 or 6 did that a lot, but Final Fantasy 7 was the first one where I felt like the world was really believable. The environments were so rich, like the Golden Saucer.
The environments were, but the characters have not aged well. Like, those
characters have not aged
with
well.
The Popeye arms, like, that's one thing about the older JRPGs. Those sprites are kind of timeless. They're always going to look adorable. But when they went with the polygon sprite models in FF7, like, that game really needs a facelift, and I'm glad it's getting one.
Ditto. All right, Jeremiah, Final Fantasy VII.
Dude, okay, so I think that this game in and of itself has two significant meanings. One would be the fact of the content, and the second one would be the process in which they made it. So the content of the game, I think, is really cool, but it starts the first, in the Final Fantasy that became part of every fucking game after that. There's always this moment where you go, wait a minute, what the fuck are we doing right now? Like, so FF7, it was, after that, like, when it's introduced kind of the Zack thing, or, no, you're not spoiling, I hope. But anyway, the clone thing.
It's 20 years later. If there's spoilers now, that's their
By the way,
fault.
Vader is Luke's father, so really
So while we're putting those out there.
Soylent Green is people.
And that one had that, like, it was so they all start so strong. I'm like, God damn, this is gonna blow my mind. And then it's like, and there's a moment where you're like, wait, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why would you do this? And for me, it was like that Sephiroth thing, like the one-winged angel, like, portion where it goes ancestors and starts going off, and I was like, I really want to be in on this, but I'm not. And anyway, still great overall and still better than the rest. And then that trend is, I'm going to touch on that on the other games. So that was content-wise. But the process-wise, it'd be the writing part. I think what maybe happened was they get these great ideas for a world, like that dystopian idea of living under a saucer, or the different sections, and they're kind of in the slums, and the rich people literally live in a thing above. This has been used in movies and books and things, but even recently,
before the Hunger Games was ever written.
Yeah, god damn it. Yeah. And it's been used pretty explicitly multiple times and implicitly others, but they literally live, it's the cloud city in the sky, it's the better thing. And so when
Seal versus the Earthbound ones.
Yes.
Yeah, and the whole idea of like corporate greed today and today's election and everything else, it's a big deal, but back then it wasn't so much. So it's such a cool idea that this guy had, and he's like, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have this ex-soldier badass come in and help this fledgling rebellion, and it doesn't get cooler than that. That's awesome. I was like, fuck yeah, let's play this game. And then it's like, oh, but there's this guy who's from the future. No, he's not from the future, he's the ancestors, and he's got this crazy spells, and now you're another person. And I was like, wait, it's like in a D&D campaign where like you hot swap the DM seat and someone just fucking starts going off the scroll.
Oh, now there's a weird vampire. He joins your team for real.
Yeah, what the fuck? I know. I like the character because I was a kid, maybe, but I still like Vincent. I'm like, that guy's a badass, but what the fuck are you doing? And anyway,
why are you here?
I think maybe the content or process-wise, they're writing, and then I don't know what happens. I don't know if it's a guy like at the water cooler and he's like drinking water. And he's like, "Hey, what if we had vampires?" Like, I don't know if that's what happened, or if it's like,
okay, we'll include vampires, but you gotta include my schoolgirl ninja.
Oh God.
Hey,
in fact, let's make that a trope for the series.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I don't know if it was that, or if it was like, he wrote the plot and he's like, here it is generally, and they're like, we need more content. And he's like, I don't know, fucking. You're a clone, and they're like, gold, solid gold, continue. And he's like, I haven't really thought it out. And they're like, don't worry, they won't
Days
follow.
of Our Lives, like season 12, like.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's perfect. That is a perfect example.
Okay, so let's end Final Fantasy VII there.
Yeah.
The next game we get is Final Fantasy Triple Triad. Sorry, Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh, my favorite game in the series.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jeremiah, I know you love this one, and I know you're going to get some resistance on it. Tell us on Final Fantasy VIII, why was it so good to you? And you can't use Triple Triad.
Oh shit.
Okay, easy to do. So FF8 was a brilliant fucking game, and I'll tell you why. Because I said so. So it's because
you're getting a PhD argument to authority. Totally works.
Yeah. No. Okay, so it's about this traveling mercenary school, right? So they took the idea of FF7, like, oh, you like mercenaries, huh? How about a whole fucking school of them, and you get to be in it? And then
how about we make them look more realistic? No more like forearms that are mysteriously rectangular.
Oh, I know. And okay. So here's why I thought it was cool.
Okay, and also before you continue, the opening pre-rendered sequence for Final Fantasy VIII.
Right the fuck now.
Who got a boner watching that? Nicole, you got a lady boner watching that,
I did.
right?
I got a lady boner, yes. I have
Jeremiah, you get huge wood watching that?
I got a lady boner.
I can't help it.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so watching that and they were selling the game, I was like, I'm fucking buying that game. And so, and okay, if we're going to, this is my pick, okay? This is the argument that I've been having in comic book stores and with fellow nerds for fucking decades now since this game came out. I was like, no, you don't get to do that. You don't get to forgive FF7 for its fucking weird ass shit and then just pick the best parts and then pick on my best game because you're like, oh, they were in a nursery somewhere? I'm like, take two dicks and sit on them because here's why. The FF7 had some weird shit. It's true. It did. But you can tell I've had this argument before. But it had some weird shit. But if you just take the best parts of it, it's fucking solid gold. It's this, you're in this traveling mercenary.
So it's like the Bible.
Airship. Yeah. You're this traveling mercenary airship, and then you go out as your team, and it's like, oh, your first fucking mission is the baddest ass mission in the world. You go out, and it's not just Squall jumping off a train and slicing some dudes and then getting caught because he's not that great. He doesn't have a team, right? No, you're out there and you're like, you fight a fucking spider thing. Like it's
your final exam.
Those cinema scenes
pass the test.
Those citizens are flying in, and like you're getting off the island, and you're like jumping, and there's Quintus at the gun, just going, just laying down fucking hate towards the enemy. I'm loving it. Like, this game had the best moments of Final Fantasy series, and I'll put that to the task. So, yes, it had some weird shit, but let's also remember that we're forgiving, anything past that and before that. But, yeah, so yeah, the weird thing at the end where it's like...
Okay, so as the host, I've got to hold you to it. Two things. One, the weird ass stuff at the end. We're like, we're all orphans and we're all related and we all forgot. Yeah. Okay, that's one. But two, the draw system.
Yeah, that was gonna be my counterpoint. The draw system is the most poorly conceived magic system of any Final Fantasy game. It makes grinding like even worse somehow.
Okay. And you're right. Like, that did ruin some of the combat. I don't mind, because I don't mind.
God, you guys are terrible at this politics game. Just cite ISIS. Tell them you're going to stop ISIS. The criticism doesn't matter.
Build a goddamn wall.
Build a wall around the draw system. But the GFs was cool, right? I liked that. It was different from, the idea of just some summoning before. This is like, you can actually attach this to you. The system that you didn't have to buy a bunch of armor, that was innovative, right? Because you add in certain... You can manipulate your magic and stuff through GF. You don't have to juggle stuff.
Right. No one denies that it was innovative. It was new, and I appreciate that effort in game.
Hey, I appreciate you're giving me the moon scenario for free because that was fucking weird. But I'll take it. So the draw system, it did screw up some stuff, but it also... Yeah, it was bad. But
it's in defense. I will agree with you, Jeremiah. If we just take Final Fantasy VIII as the first disc, it's a fantastic game. If that game had ended after disc 1, it'd be like my number 1 game.
I'll even give it to disc 2 because disc 2 is where they're trying to kill the witch character whose name I forget, but then she throws the ice bolt.
No, that's how disc 1 ends.
That's how disc 1 ends? Okay.
Yep, so I remember that's where the game gets weird. There's a fan theory that says everything after that is just Squall's dying hallucinations. And that makes the game make sense to me.
They didn't even try.
My boner stayed intact up until then, for sure. Straight through, hours on end.
I love the idea that my final exam was a fucking mission where I had to fight robot spiders. I loved everything about disc 1. That story was amazing. And then it's my same criticism with 7, so I'm not being a hypocrite here.
Hang on, there's still some quality content, the part where you're basically stopping nukes or missiles. That part's cool. That mission where you go and you got to save those people. But I don't understand why they didn't just add in just 2 lines of dialogue to be like, when he wakes up after he got stabbed in the heart and he's just hanging out in the med bay, when he sits up, all he had to do is go, that was fucking weird, and they're like, yeah, I guess you're over it, and then they just move on. But they didn't even acknowledge it. That's why it's so weird. He just sits up and they're like, all right, so we got another mission coming up. This dude was a dead man for who knows how long. They picked him up off the street and drug him in med bay.
Yeah, just hey man, let's have a hot dog eating contest because you're fine.
Yeah. It's just weird.
Right. Yes, the ending includes a hot dog eating contest. But
the bad guy, that source was Edea, right? Edea? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And Cypher is one of the coolest. It's that whole Fallen Knight thing. Oh man, and their outfits. Okay, I'm done.
I had a huge crush on Renoa too.
That's the other reason for the boner.
Yes.
And also, I will give you vastly improved character graphics. That was a huge selling point.
And a great soundtrack.
You have to. Who's going to argue that?
Well, not
I'm going to take a strong stance.
I'm bold and say Final Fantasy VII had worse character graphics.
Not just the improvements you would expect from one title to the next, but they really took a huge leap forward with it.
Yeah. And I'll admit that Squall was more attractive to me at the time because of he was kind of going through this emo thing, and me as a teenager was also going through a weird emotional thing. So I was sure. I get him, nobody else does. Fuck you guys,
Squall, so surly, such a surly character.
All right, so Jeremiah absolutely loved Final Fantasy.
No, hang on. Okay. One word, compound word, and let's just talk about Gunblade. Yes.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for when that was coming.
When you see the cinema scene and he's doing it, and I'm like, oh my god, is he going to shoot that? And then the game when you pull the trigger when he slices it, it was so good. That is so. Oh man. Okay, continue.
All right, we turn to David for counterpoint.
Oh man, you've already hit it. The draw system ruins the combat for me. It's such a. It's not only unintuitive, it's like they tried to find a way to make combat actively more boring. They're like, well, what's really fun is if you just spam the same command for 100 times so you can fill up all your flares. Why would they think that's a good thing to do? Why? I don't understand. One of my favorite moments in gaming history is the waltz with Renoa when you're at the graduation.
That was pretty good.
And that does not redeem this game from the draw system and all the wackery that happens after disc 1. Like, it would be my favorite Final Fantasy game if those two things were different.
All right, Nicole, did you spend more time playing Final Fantasy VIII or Triple Triad?
I did miss the end of it. What was it?
Did you spend more time playing the actual game or more time playing Triple Triad?
Probably Triple Triad because I didn't like that whole draw thing with in the turn base either. I hated.
And you said you didn't finish Final Fantasy VIII, right?
No, I didn't. I stopped.
God.
Well, you missed some really bizarre things. It was basically an LSD trip.
No,
Okay.
but you still got to fight Cypher. You still got to, well, kind of, and then you still got to fight Edea. Like, it's all there. It's all the stuff you want.
It is.
Have
it
they
is.
remade that? Is that, or has it just been like?
No, I hope they do remake it though. I really do. I think it would be worthy of a remake.
Oh, that part where you walk in and you think, oh, you see her sitting in the chair, and then it's her, and you're like, I'm fucked. That part's awesome. Like, there's so many parts in that game that got it right. And so I just highlight those. When
Where you find out Renoa is secretly a sorceress, and that means something. It's unclear what it means exactly, but it's a plot point.
Okay. So Jeremiah thinks it's the best game in the series. Now, David and Nicole, is it a bad game, a mediocre game, or still a good game? Because I vote good. Even with its flaws, I vote it was a good game.
It's deeply flawed to the point where I couldn't replay it after the first disc.
Nicole?
You're dead to me.
Nicole, what you got?
I liked it. I thought it was a good game. I enjoyed it.
Let's go start a podcast,
Grant.
Nicole. Because I don't have one anymore with that other guy.
Okay. Now, quickly through Final Fantasy IX, which is one of the most critically acclaimed games in the entire franchise, but at the same
Weird.
time, one of the fewest purchased games in the franchise. Why?
I don't know. My favorite thing about it was the skill tree. I absolutely loved that thing. But I'm not sure because I didn't like 12 was the one that I started was like, oh God. And then I didn't play anything really from there. I just watched my husband play some of them. That was it.
Oh,
I was done.
Rethinking that podcast idea.
Yeah.
David.
Here's my theory, JT. I think America was kind of burned out on weird little boy, monkey boy protagonists after Dragon Ball, who come from the moon with the intent to destroy the planet. I think we'd all played that game before while we were watching Dragon Ball Z. So
was part of it also the delivery though? Because Final Fantasy VIII, you have this very real. The art tried to mimic reality as closely as possible.
Yeah, it went very cartoonish after that, and more of a comic undertone. Like 7 and 8 were both very dark dystopian games, and then you get to 9, which is just like we're going back to medieval fantasy, but it's silly. And so I think that turned. It was a fun game. I enjoyed playing it, but it turned a lot of people off.
It was a great game.
Doesn't matter. It's like Wind Waker.
Doesn't matter.
When they came out with that art design, there's a lot of people. It caused a schism of people who. So when you play a video game, a lot of times it's about a fantasy, right? Like and
Final Fantasy
totally
1 through 8, it was very real. Like they didn't sugarcoat anything. They were dark worlds. Main characters died.
Yeah, and like when you play like Call of Duty, you're this elite group of soldiers who's out to save the world from getting nuked or whatever. It's some fantasy you're playing out, right? Well, with Link or some beloved franchise or like Final Fantasy, you'll see why this relates. With Link, you either can like the graphical limitations. Everyone interpret that differently. Like I interpret it as a real fucking elf dude, right? Running around with a sword, and he probably looks badass as fuck, right? So as graphics got better and better, it became closer and closer to my fantasy of what it was. And then they had that split, and then you're like, what the fuck? That's not Link, the little weirdo, And so it was difficult because of that. And so the same thing with Final Fantasy. It was like, oh, you want, Final Fantasy 6 or the earlier ones, like, or I played Mystic Quest, and then you imagine that they actually look like real fucking badasses. And then so 6 or 7 comes along, you're like, oh, hey, I guess I was right. 8 comes along, you're like, I was fucking right. And then 9 comes along, and you got that weird knight with the big old. He looks like a dude. And I was just like, I can't even play that game. I didn't play Wind Waker either because fuck it. I did not want to reinforce that strategy.
So onward to real tense territory. Final Fantasy X, considered by many to be one of the greatest RPGs ever made, if not the best.
Are you making that up? I want to see a source for that.
No, Google it. Best RPGs ever made.
Every top RPG list.
That's
Yeah,
true. One of the best RPGs ever made.
Is it in the top 10?
It's generally in the top 5 of most of the lists I've seen. Google it and see.
I'm Googling it right now. I gotta call
I'm
bullshit.
Googling right now.
Really?
There's a list of
I didn't think
100.
it was that high.
I loved it. I do think it's one of the best ever made.
I liked it, but I didn't think that people were all that great.
You're
on
full of
it.
shit, JT, is what we're saying, but nicely.
That's fine. if I am, then I am. Like I can admit that.
All right, this one has Elder Scrolls V as the best RPG ever made.
What? Go to a different list.
Disqualified.
Keep looking until you find it.
Immediately.
All right, I'll look for one that has what you want me to find.
This list has 8 Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger's number 8. Nope.
What? Yeah. No,
Can't even.
absolutely not.
I can't even. No, yeah, it's not in here. 15. I don't think. Okay, so I liked it a lot. I really did. I played the whole game. I even played it through.
It does return to the darker, more realistic artwork, but also with some light and happy elements. The village where Waka is,
dude, it's good. I just like the game, and the sphere grid fucking rocks. The idea of like a water sword, I thought that was cool. People are like, water sword. I'm like, they're fucking chocobos. People, chill. Like if you're going for epic fantasy, maybe I don't know. Anyway, and the voice actors were a little rough, but overall the idea was cool.
I think that's very generous.
Yeah.
Okay, but as a counterpoint, oh god.
Sorry,
out of your system.
Replaying my favorite.
The idea of sin and how it's like moving into different parts of the world is totally cool.
Yeah, I do appreciate, like with you, Yevon, at the end, the anti-religion elements. Of course, I'm biased, but
yeah,
I thought it was good. But also, Auron, what a badass.
He's got his arm in a sling because he's such a badass. He doesn't need to use 2 arms.
No,
I like Titus. I like Titus, except his voice was stupid.
Yeah, it's okay.
He wasn't stupid. His
costumes.
character. Well, I don't know. I mean, it was this weird beachy, and I was like, all right, I guess that's what the cool kids wear over there in the beach. I don't know. I've never been to that beach, but apparently Xanarkand, you dress like a weirdo. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Like, the guy's cool. I just liked him. I liked his character. I built him out to be like a speedy dude, so I really enjoyed him. I don't know.
I'm actually with Jeremiah on this one. I thought his voice acting was terrible, but the character itself and the struggles he was going through did register with me. Nicole, what did you think of Final Fantasy X?
I liked it, and that was another one that I thought that they did a great job with the skill tree thing, with the gems that went all over the place. I loved that. That was great.
I did think it had one of the best skill systems. All right,
Yeah.
so David, why was it bad?
I like the grid system. I'll give it that. The voice acting was a terrible direction to take, or at least voice acting without good voice actors. I've already talked about the costume design really turned me off. The story was fine. It was a good story.
Wait,
but
could I pause you there? The costume
Yeah.
design, you didn't like the main characters. Was there any of them that you did like?
Not Waka, not Titus. Lulu I probably liked for the wrong reasons because I was a teenager.
Okay. What about the weird elf guys?
I don't remember that character.
I wasn't engaged, but
If it happened after Blitzball, I probably didn't meet the character.
okay, cool. Okay.
All right. And again, like between Jeremiah's ambivalence to 6 and my ambivalence to 10, you're gonna get a lot of hate mail from the two of us. So just prepare for that. We've alienated all of your fans.
Okay, rate David. Just rate the story of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. How good was the story?
I don't know. It was like a 7. I make fun of the tropes it uses, like, oh, the bad guy's secretly your father, but
Right.
like overall, like it was a decent story. It was one that was more coherent than 7 or 8. Like it's one that I could remember better.
How much does
the weird stuff?
How much does the triple eject shot pull you out of that, though?
Oh yeah, the triple eject shot. Like if they would just release the Blitzball mini game, I'm on board.
Yeah.
It's the triple triad of its day. And
Oh my
JT,
God.
I'm looking at the IGN top 100 RPGs of all time. Number 1 is Final Fantasy VI. Number 2 is Chrono
Nice.
Trigger. Final Fantasy X doesn't make it in the top 10.
Really? Damn, that surprises me, honestly. But the top 2 I give credit for.
That's like the third list I've looked at, and it's not even showing up. I'm sorry, JT.
fair.
I think you might be misremembering.
I accept that. Okay,
How about that unsent mechanic? That was cool. And the fact of
What mechanic? Unsent?
unsent. Yeah, the unsent
Oh,
people
yeah.
who weren't sent yet. And Yuna was someone who would send people with her little thing, and then you find out some cool shit about that. With some
Yeah,
of the
it was an interesting. Like, I don't like the beach motif, but as far as like the double worlds, like it's an interesting thing to do. It's like I always like games that have a light dark world mechanic.
Okay, so it's appropriate to ask here, what was the last Final Fantasy game you played?
12.
Lightning, the lightning one was at 13.
13.
No,
Mine
14.
Would be what is it?
Oh,
What's the
14,
name
the
of
MMO. Yeah, I played 14 as well.
Mine would be the was it called Time Crisis? It was the Final Fantasy like 7 offshoot that they made for the PSP
I remember
or
that.
PS Vita. Yeah, whichever one. It was that one. That's the
All right,
last one that
let's
I
turn to
played.
Final Fantasy 12 then to finish out what most people consider like the main canon, or what all the old schoolers do.
So we're gonna skip over 11.
We're gonna skip over 11. We're gonna pretend 11 never happened. Final Fantasy 12. Once again, great critic reviews, but when you talk to most people, a lot of us, myself included, didn't finish the game. Don't consider it a good addition to the game. For a lot of people, because they think it tried to mimic an MMO in what was not an MMO. So I grant Jeremiah's point earlier that Balthier, one of the greatest characters of the whole Final Fantasy franchise, but why did the game fail to keep people involved in the Final Fantasy franchise? And a lot of people stopped playing it after that.
That main character, though. Jesus. They were like, hey, did people like Titus? We're like, no. And they were like, let's do that, but younger and more annoying. And we're like, what? He's so dumb. Like, I can't possibly connect with that kid. And he's like a little pipsqueak. Anyway.
He's a little street rat. He's a little brash urchin.
I just couldn't get behind him. And he's like a clone of Titus, but lamer, without a cool water sword.
But a better costume.
I don't know, dude. He's like flamboyantly out there. I don't know, dude.
David, I know you were all about Balthier. Did you finish 12?
I didn't, but because I had to rent a PlayStation and the game to play it on, so it's a time issue. I would happily go back and finish it. A lot of people criticized it for things that I think were strengths of the system, like for example the battle mechanic where you could innovate, you could mechanize, you could kind of program what you were going to do. A lot of people didn't like that, but for me, most of Final Fantasy is me mashing the attack button over and over again. So for those battles, like it was nice to have just an automated thing where I didn't have to just mash the A button over and over when I'm just out grinding or out doing the quests, the bounties. You could always pause it and do more turn-based style on boss battles where tactics are more important. But I actually enjoyed that innovation in the system. I thought it made it a lot easier to go through the kind of grindier, because by that point we were kind of over turn-based, like attack, spell, item, like that system of combat anyway. So I actually enjoyed that. I enjoyed a lot of the game. The pacing did slow down a lot.
The pacing was really slow.
Like it had a really strong start, and then once you start exploring tombs in your airship, that's about as far as I got before I had to turn the game back into Blockbuster because I'm fucking old. But at that point, I could already feel the story was slowing down a little bit. So I haven't finished the game. I want to. I'm gonna get the remake when it comes out on PS4 and actually finish the game, and I can give you a more informed opinion. 12? Yeah, they're giving it at least a remaster, if not a remake.
It gets worse. That's the thing. Like, so the cool mechanic. So if I could take the best part of each game out and talk about it, I would. And this one would be the fact that there's these judges of this kingdom, right? And then the fact that you got Balthier, he's this rogue who's kind of like almost a locked character, but in like 3D, and that's cool. And then you've got the Mist, this idea of this kind of you've got the man versus nature idea right there. It says man versus man, man versus nature, and then you've got I think there's one more thing. Oh, the airships, of course. Yeah, so that's rad. And then I think the part that ruins it is they start talking about space pirates and bringing in all this weird shit, and you're like, or it's not space pirate, air pirates. And the concept is cool, but it's slowly executed. Then there's like this random faction that tries to talk to you, and then you've got all this world running to do. There's backtracking. It's really annoying, and that part is where I stopped playing. It was a little bit later than you, David, probably a few hours, but it's still just it just wasn't compelling. It's like I said, with all JRPGs, it's a pacing issue, and this one it just shined out because it could have been cool. Just you're asking the player to invest in your campaign anytime you write a story, whether you're DM or making a game. You have to make it a compelling purchase, or they're going to back out.
Okay, so let's get into some rankings before we wrap up with the closing issue of the show. All right, starting with David, which Final Fantasy game was the best?
6.
Jeremiah.
8.
6, 8. Nicole.
I have to say 7.
7, and I say 10. We have no consensus.
Which I think is a strength of the franchise, is that it can inspire such diverse loyalties. Like there's a game in there for everyone.
Good point.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about it like that.
So let's take it to this then. Which game had the best soundtrack? Start back with David.
7?
7 was excellent.
But 8's up there too. It's tough. It's a tough call. I'm gonna go with 7. I'm gonna be decisive.
Vivos, Lusac.
That's so good.
Rolf.
Yeah, I might have to hand it to
Jeremiah,
7.
best soundtrack.
I might have to hand it to 7, although I liked overall, but I liked some of the 8 tracks better by far, personally.
Okay, Nicole, best soundtrack.
Yeah, mine would have to be 7 too. The ending fight was just like
Oh,
it
dude!
was crazy. Loved it.
But sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that's right. That was all.
But 8, where they put the music in when you're doing the mission to go, you're talking about the end of the first disc. I'm trying not to spoil it too much, but I guess it doesn't matter. You're going to execute this plan of executing something.
A person.
Okay,
Yeah,
so when Eris dies,
Shit. I leveled her up so much. She was my main healer. I had so much XP invested in her. I was like, shit, now I'm stuck with Tifa?
Yeah, now you're with Punch Boobs McGee.
I was looking for all the like walk backwards 7 times, all those internet rumors about how to bring Eris back to life.
Dude, that an FF8 where they're traveling through the parade basically, and you're like rushing to get to places, and it's playing that Vithos Ruzek. I saved that, and I reloaded that like 7 or 8 times after I played the entire games, and just replayed that scene because wow, that is awesome, and that music too, oh, so good. So I got to say that track's my favorite of all time in Final Fantasy.
Nicole, okay, you say 7. I'm gonna break with everyone. I'm gonna hand it to 6. I thought 6 had the best.
I'm going to give
soundtrack.
6 honorable mention for the ability that they had to give every character a unique and interesting theme that matched their character. Like 6 is strong for giving all the characters unique personalities, and they mirror that in the soundtrack, which is great.
Yeah, I feel like with 6, the focus of the soundtrack was on making the characters memorable, whereas with 7 and 8, the point of the soundtrack, well, like 7, the soundtrack was to turn the world into another character for you.
It's more about scenes and like events in 7 and 8, but 6 focused. It was a character-focused soundtrack.
Yeah. Okay, so which particular track has stayed with you through the year? When I say like Final Fantasy music, which track springs to mind? Nicole, we're going to start with you on this one.
I would have to say, well, I mean, of course, everybody like the Sephiroth thing, but the one where you're going through your home village, I thought was very moving in 7, where he goes back and he's walking around, figuring out like where he came from. I thought that was a good one.
Okay, Jeremiah?
I mean, honestly, my favorite track would be the Vithos song from FF8, but I'd have to say FF7, the one Winged Eagle. No, probably the one where what's this song? It has like heavy. It's almost like industrial. It's like that one. The boom boom.
Yeah, I know which one you're
I'll have
talking
to
about.
look it up. I didn't know this question was coming, or I'd look at the title. But it plays in a lot of the tension scenes. It plays in the. I think it plays when you first encounter Genova. I think it plays. It plays whenever. It's just this. It's like a.
The melody is like da da.
Yeah.
Da, da.
Yeah. And it's like in a first-person shooter, an old school one, where they start giving you health and like BFG ammo. You're like, oh shit! Like it's that, but musically, which I loved. So it started playing, and I was like, oh shit, about to go down. I loved it.
All right, David, favorite track.
The most distinctive is definitely the bum 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 bum.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna veto that one. That's the one everyone knows.
But for me, my favorite is the one that they use when you beat the game. The dun 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 bum 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 bum.
The intro to Final Fantasy IV. Actually, they played that during the intro.
Yeah, it's a great. There's I think it's the Final Fantasy VIII version of it. I'd have to go back. I have a lot of piano music from Final Fantasy series, and there's a great trill. Like one of my favorite musical moments. I get a shiver every time I hear it. Is this certain trill in the middle of it. Yeah, it's so swelling and like triumphant, and I just feel like yes, I just beat a Final Fantasy game. I feel the happies every time.
Okay, all those. Yeah, I agree. For me too, but. the moon theme from Final Fantasy IV, where you first get the ship that takes you to the moon. That's the one that stuck with me through all the years. And Suteki Dane from Final Fantasy X. The Suteki Dane, ba-da-da-da, where like Tidus kisses Yuna for the first time.
Oh, that's the Star-Crossed Lovers. They're classic. They're the Romeo and Juliet of the
Right.
franchise.
Okay. So there's all the music. We're gonna pass over that question. I was gonna ask. Okay, real quick. Which is the sleeper title in the series? I'll go ahead and say 4. Sleeper title.
I'm gonna say Tactics.
Yes.
Oh, Tactics.
Oh,
Good.
yeah. I don't like any of the tactics. I don't like any of them.
Okay, back to you, Dave, for the podcast.
Yeah,
Sorry.
back on deck.
All right. So Nicole, what's your sleeper title in the franchise?
Yeah, I have to go with tactics.
Tactics.
I didn't
Okay.
like this either.
No. Sleeper is in good but underrated.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant like completely blech.
No.
Good but underrated.
That question's
I'll go-
coming next.
I'll go with the mobile one that I played because not very many people. I don't know if it's just because it's mobile, or PSP or what, but not very many people I know have played that one, and I enjoyed the hell out of it.
The one about memories or the Xvius, the newer one?
It's the other one. I'm pretty sure it's called Time Crisis. Final
yeah.
Fantasy VII Time Crisis, I think.
There's
All right.
so many Final Fantasy mobile games now.
Playing on Nicole's interpretation of that last question, which title was the worst, and why was it Final Fantasy X2?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Gotta be.
It's weird because it's such a good game. How would it spawn such a bad spinoff?
God, it.
Wow.
I just.
Weird.
The graphics were good, the music was good, but the plot was idiotic.
Oh,
Like,
so how long have you
right-
been a misogynist, JT? Why do you hate?
I'm not being misogynist, but they tried to jazz up the job system with dress spheres, and it didn't need to be jazzed up. The job system was fine. It carried so many of your previous titles. Why does Final Fantasy X2 exist?
Money.
Sounds a cynic.
Same reason Disney direct-to-DVD sequels exist.
Our input from the porn industry says money.
Yeah, it's
Well,
money.
I hope it's money, because if that's someone's baby over there, and they're like, "Man, this is my girl," like I don't want to meet that person. You sing.
Okay.
You sing.
Yeah, you sing. Okay, so who are the most memorable characters from the franchise? We'll go back to David to start this one out.
Gotta go with Balthier. That guy's got style. He's got panache.
One for Balthier, Jeremiah, most memorable characters.
Wedge and Biggs. Gotta be. They're in all of them. Wedge and Biggs, baby.
Oh yeah, and Sid, another recurring classic.
Yeah, I'd have to say that because every franchise, the thing I think that Final Fantasy does well, and I hope nobody can argue against, is build characters that are cool. Like
They do.
Every game, I like the characters. I don't always like their voice acting, but or minus FF12, okay, the main character, the only one I didn't like. But other than that, I think they're great. I even liked Waka, which is like a apparently controversial stance, but
He's the Jar Jar Binks of that game.
no,
I like
dude,
Waka.
he's your bro, man. He's your boy. He's
Yeah.
cool. He's like, hey, I'm always there for you, man. Like he's just like the stoner buddy, you know?
Okay, are you really going to stick with Biggs and Wedge?
I mean, because I couldn't pick otherwise. Like I love Cloud's awesome. I like Barrett because he's with you the whole time. I like Squall, even though I know it's controversial. I love Zell. Like I know that's controversial too, but I like Irvine for what he contributes. That has never been done before, or rarely been done before. In
Yeah,
an
he
RPG
was the
where main
spoony
character-
bard of Final Fantasy VIII.
Well, yeah, and then when it comes to it, there's a real character-defining moment. Like there's just so many great characters. It's tough to say. I'd have to count on one hand the ones I don't like, and really I need even less fingers because it's just good. So I'd have to say the only characters that make repeated entrances besides Sid the pilot is Wedge and Biggs.
All right, Nicole, most memorable characters from the franchise.
I have two.
Okay.
One would be Sephiroth, of course. I mean, that hair.
Hard to deny Sephiroth. He's like the flagship character from this
The
franchise.
guy who can carry a sword that's like bigger than a state. I mean, and
Everybody in that game did. Cloud Sword was
they
huge.
did. They did.
Sephiroth was overcompensating something fierce.
Know what the hell was up with that? It was strange. The other one would be, and I always know I'm mispronouncing, I'm sure, but Bahamut. When you always cast your,
Bahamut.
That yes, oh my goodness, I could. I know that they I think later on let it where you could change your settings and you don't have to watch the little intro thing every time you cast. I'm like, why the fuck would you do that?
I want to nuke the planet every time I fight.
Exactly, I want to see that shit. Hell
Didn't
yeah.
nuke the planet last time? How's the planet still here?
Loved that. So yeah, those would be my two.
Take that, Cactrot.
I did love Balthier. I thought Eris was a really interesting character. How she was just like, but she was there, but she was kind of ethereal. She was like this really soft-spoken Yoda. She always knew the right thing to say, and I thought her death was extremely poetic.
And a little Freudian too, I might add.
That's true, and also Auron. I loved Auron in Final Fantasy X, one of my all-time favorites.
I really liked Mog as a kid, but I think it was just because I was a kid. It's like the same reason I liked Ewok.
No, Mog is excellent. What are you talking about?
He can dance. He busts a rug and stuff happens. He was a fun little guy. Plus, he had the Moogle charm, which lets you skip all the random encounters that made the old school RPG such a slog. You could just skip them. They're gone now. Thanks, Mog.
Very surprised.
No game genie even needed.
Very surprised you guys didn't say Kate Sith. I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah.
So good.
That's like all 5 of Jeremiah's fingers on the characters he doesn't like was Kate Sith.
And Renoa gets an mention for me being in love with her.
Oh, Pain from XXX2. Pain. Her name's Pain.
Shut the fuck
She brings
up.
the pain.
Oh
Her
my
friends
God.
call her the Pain Train for that reason.
Her enemy's killing me.
Are you done? Are you finished? You're killing me. All right. Okay, so moving the franchise forward, they've lost a lot of players since 12. Interest in the franchise has declined, as I think interest in the standard JRPG model has declined. What does Final Fantasy have to do to revive the series?
Write a
Nicole,
fucking good. Sorry.
Oh, and, I was just thinking, didn't they make like some kind of Final Fantasy game where you had to play music?
Yeah, Final Fantasy Rhythm.
Oh yeah, there is a
on
rhythm game.
3DS. It's fun. It's a rhythm game based off the Final Fantasy soundtracks.
Okay,
I never
but
got to
like
play it.
excluding spin-offs, but getting back to the RPG model that is at the heart of the franchise. Your spin-offs are a good way to keep it alive and whatnot. But what do they have to do to get people back interested in that? Jeremiah, you had a thought. Nicole, do you think Jeremiah will go to you?
Yeah.
Write a fucking good story, bro. Like, I don't understand.
That was what was popping in my head, and I was like, I just want to say story again. But yes, I have to agree.
No, if story's the answer, then story's the answer.
Dude, what? Like, there's a point where, like, I want to see them write, like you were saying about FF7, David. I want to see them write on a sheet of paper. I'm going to be like, give me your elevator pitch for this, because that always rocks it. Then give me your 5-page essay, and I'm going to edit that motherfucker, because you always get something wrong. Your elevator pitch is awesome, because they're like, FF8, traveling mercenary group, a class, they all graduate together, and they're thrown in way over their head and they have to save the world against an evil sorceress. You're like, whoa, fuck, yeah, that's awesome, let's do that. And then they're like, also go to the moon in a nursery. And you're like, wait, what? And then like, don't worry about it, it's a 5-page essay, you don't want to read the whole thing. Like,
Wait, what was that last part? Sound like you said a nursery?
no, that's fine. Yeah, and like FF10, they're like, oh man, this evil Sen coming destroying a literal paradise. It's called Sen. It's also metaphorical Sen. And it's sort of like the tsunami idea against many beach communities. They'll get it. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you take a metaphorical or a real danger and you turn it into a metaphorical like sin danger. That's cool. I like that. And then they're like, yeah, no big deal. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. Jet shot. You're like, what? What'd you say? It's your dad? What is? Sin? The tsunami is your dad? Yeah, sin. Like, just cut that shit out. So give that guy, whoever makes the elevator pitch, hire him. And then fire him immediately when he finishes. And just get him out of there. And then just make that bigger. Like, I think that's it.
David, do you have anything to add to that?
I would like to add in Ten's favor. I do like the motif of Yuna having to sacrifice herself and like the journey being her like going to make that sacrifice. It's a compelling one.
I'm telling you, man, Final Fantasy X, killer game.
I Am Sakura kind of stole that, and it was the most compelling part of that game. But again, dude, the voice acting, like that's the fucking draw system for me. I gotta draw the line. But no, Jeremiah is exactly right. A good story that doesn't just fall apart after one disc is what this franchise needs to get a shot in the arm. Like you can change the combat system, you can do all these sorts of things. It will still feel like Final Fantasy to me as long as the story is good and the characters are compelling.
So we're all in agreement that what really defines the Final Fantasy franchise is its excellent storytelling, and that's what they need to focus on.
I think that's what they've been lacking for a while.
Okay. So, last question about the Final Fantasy franchise. Would you be open to sequels to past titles? We've only seen one real sequel, and it was Final Fantasy X2, and it was, for lack of a better word, shitty, which is the same word I used to refer to Donald Trump, so that's saying something, right? Would you be open to sequels for other titles or to crossovers where they combine the world with, say, 4 and 6? Because thus far, they're all different worlds, aside from Vixen Wedge and Cecil.
Let me ask you if you mean sequels by the. Are you saying like with the same characters and continuing?
Same characters, same
Like
world,
the next two
continuing the
scenario.
story.
It's tough. They kind of shut things down. I like it. I like the idea of revisiting those worlds, but you might have to get new characters because, like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, FF8 when it ends and they're showing all those like they're at this party, right? And it's showing these reels of them all like doing different things at the party, like Zell's eating hot dogs, and he's like, oh, and then other people trying to do things. Watching each of the characters end, I was like, I don't want to see this end. This sucks. I want to see more of this. So maybe, and FF7, I think, might have burnt the candle out in that one. But yeah, there's a lot that you can continue there. FF10's kind of like maybe done, but anyway.
Would that kill their whole like known for thing though? Because it's like, every one is, it's Final Fantasy 7, 8, blah, 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 but it's actually not a continuing same story across other ones. So if you were to have sequels and stuff, do you think that would piss off people that they'd feel like that wasn't Final Fantasy?
Yeah, I'm kind of done with the characters. Their arcs resolve. Like, I wouldn't want to go back to FF6 and see what they're up to now. Like, they all have good resolutions. Like from a storytelling perspective, I like the idea of a brand new story in a brand new setting. Although, just to correct you a little bit to nitpick, because I don't want you to get emails saying this later, the world of Ivalice or Ivalice, however you pronounce it, like that's become a standard Final Fantasy world. It shows up in all the tactics games. It's the world of Final Fantasy 12. It's the most fleshed out. It's got the most politics, the most history. I would love to play another game set in that world because I really like that kind of steampunk fantasy setting that they've built there.
Okay, so you're opposed to other sequels, but you'd be okay with more games that don't necessarily continue the story of the previous ones.
Same setting, but
set in
different
Ivalice.
Right, yeah. Okay. I do like that.
I'm kind of with David on that one. I think the other characters resolve so well, although I would like to see a continuation of 8. I agree with Jeremiah. I thought that left somewhere to go. But yeah, all the others
because
resolve
nobody
so
knows,
well.
like, no one can agree on what the ending of 8 even means.
Well, there is that.
Resolution.
All right, last question of the night. We bill ourselves as games, news, and glory. We've got the games and the glory. Let's hit some news. Second presidential debate.
Oh, the only sequel that's better than the first.
Nice.
So
we
fun.
get a whole nother one set in that universe still. So.
Oh my god, it was a post-hot mic debate. I was looking forward to it, and just like Hillary was savage. She was so savage. She did not pull any punches, and Trump was at his Trumpiest. He was interrupting. He was prowling like the sexual predator that he is. It was amazing.
Did you see the hump chair thing? The hump chair picture?
Yes.
Oh my god, I lost it.
And all the memes it's produced, like them singing "I Had the Time of My Life" was the highlight of my day when that showed up on Facebook. It did everything from the first debate, but better. They took it up to 11.
Well, it's because Trump was more Trumpy, and we had Anderson motherfucking Cooper, the
not
silver-haired god of debating.
Silver Fox did not let him off the hook. Oh, so you raped women, right? No, answer the question. You assaulted women, right? That's what you're referring to?
And then he goes, please stop interrupting. She didn't interrupt you. And I was like, yes! And shut down that conspiracy of like, dude,
yeah, because he's trying to play that martyr card that he loves so much.
Also, Martha Raddatz, man, she kept a grip on everything.
They were killing it. The moderators were better. It had fucking Ken Bone, the hero not the hero that we need, but maybe the hero we deserve right now.
Dude, the guy was leaning Trump. Like, he's not a hero. Fuck that guy.
No, dude, that guy was sporting a mustache that will live on for the ages.
Oh my god. Okay, who won the second debate?
I don't know. It's a toss-up.
Yeah, I think Hillary definitely won on a logical level, but the rhetoric, if you're just judging on rhetoric and like passion, a lot of people are giving the last half of the debate to Trump and the first half to Hillary.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of
good.
even on 538, a lot of like analysts are looking at it and saying he had a rough first 30 minutes, but the last 60 minutes were like him dominating somehow. I don't know. I mean, I teach rhetoric, so I can see through these tricks, but a lot of people can't.
Yeah, most people want their life philosophies down to something that'll fit on a bumper sticker, and Trump gives them that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I had a quote. And I'm gonna look it up. But in the meantime of looking that up, there's a. I thought the only part that I thought he did well at, where I actually laughed, was when he said that you'd be in prison thing. That was pretty funny. I don't think that was a threat. Like a lot of people are like, oh, he's saying it's a threat. I was like, maybe. I don't think he thinks that far ahead.
No, actually, I was watching his rally in West Palm Beach today, and when the crowd started chanting "lock her up," like dead seriously, the guy's like, "Yeah, she should be locked up," like not joking.
Yeah, no, I believe that's true. But I think it's about the emails. Some people are saying that he's saying when he gets the presidency, he's planning on doing a headhunt. I'm not sure about that one.
I would like,
also,
while we're on this
so
subject, before we move
the
on.
33,000 email line he keeps trotting out, like, seriously, take 5 seconds and Google that. The FBI has those. Like, they have them.
That's
like,
facts, man. Facts.
Yeah, and they're all personal, like she said. Like, there is nothing there.
No, but no, to be fair, there are some things that were classified. Like we can't straw man their position, even though they're blowing it way out of proportion. I would recommend for everybody, there's an article on Cracked called How Half of America Lost Its Fucking Mind by David Wong. It's really good. It helps you get into the mindset of a Trump supporter and like kind of see like they're wrong. They are wrong. Trump is a bad idea, but it helped me see where they're coming from and not demonize them as just a bunch of backward homophobic racists.
It's part of it.
Do I want that? I don't know if I want that.
I mean, you're stuck with them either way. Like we share a country with them, and there's a lot of red in this state or in this country. So, like, to at least like you grew up in rural Arkansas, you can see where that despair and that feeling of being ignored by the boom is. Like they're definitely being manipulated, and they're wrong. But you can see where that frustration's coming from.
Okay, I will look that article up then. I'll pledge to do that because I do want to be fair to them.
Yeah, they're definitely wrong, and we should all be not voting for Trump. But I feel like, although I don't agree with them, I don't hate them anymore. I feel sorry for them.
I pity them.
Yes.
Thank you, Gandalf. Many people deserve death. Can you give it to them?
Can you give it to them, JP?
I think it's. I mean, I think the article did pretty well in understanding a portion of the voter base. But I think there's also, like you were saying, JT, a lot of people do. There's this myth that like complicating things is for the intellectually elite, and it's not realistic, and it's stupid. You know, they're like, I'm a real simple person. I live life by one principle, and it's do right by others or something. And you're like, no, you don't. You think you do, but you don't. You do. You have plenty of principles. You just never thought them out. You've never done any introspection, so you don't know them. And so, but they don't. They're not comfortable thinking about things.
Whoa! What are you, a psychologist or something?
Yeah. Not yet, but don't tell my clients. No, so they want life to be simple. They don't want. Some people feel uncomfortable engaging people in conversation. I know people like this, where you go, "What's your thoughts about that?" And they go, "I don't want to get a fight about it. I just know that America needs to be great again. And that's what I'm doing." And you're like, "Yeah, you want it to be simple, don't you? You don't want to have to think about it." And so, because it's difficult for you if you don't have a logical structure of how to piece apart a problem and then say, okay, here are the good parts, here are the bad parts. You just want something to be simple, which is a big portion of America. You're going to vote for Trump because they say things like, well, it's real easy. Once the rich get rich, so do you, or whatever, you know, and they're like, okay, that sounds good, you know, and they don't care. They're just buying it. So I think it's I like the optimistic look that their article gave, and I believe that is true on some of their voter base, but it's also just, I think maybe they're underestimating how many people are in the other camp, where they're just like, I don't know, maybe it's because I have family on these lines, and they just want things to be safe. Or more importantly, they just want to vote Republican, and they'll vote anyone, and then they'll use motivated reasoning to make it make sense.
Like
however,
Lucifer could be the Republican candidate, and they vote for him just because there's an R next to his name.
Yeah, and they'd be like, well, Hillary Clinton's done bad too, and you're like, oh, that's real equivocating.
Well, Clinton got cheated on. It's basically like assaulting women. That's the same thing.
Yeah, it was just words. No, what? Is a confession in court just words? Because he's confessing crimes.
Words convey ideas. There's ideas behind the words, and that's the problem. That's the very issue.
And he was quoting times he's sexually assaulted people.
That's not words, but they were bad ideas, and
Okay, last question before we wrap the show up. Is Trump done? Nicole?
I wish I could say yes, but given that I have family members, I'm going to have to say no. But I am kind of going towards your idea of, I think this could possibly show that he has chance. We're getting close, I think. If he just keeps opening his mouth. And
Yeah, I noticed
saying
the
stuff.
second half of the debate, Hillary was like, "You just do your
Just
thing."
keep going. Just keep going. I'm not going to interrupt you. Why should I? You just go on. Yeah.
I just loaded up 538. Nate Silver's got Hillary at 86% to win, and Arizona has flipped blue.
Yeah, he's not the Teflon that once he was. He's done. Like the GOP's already withdrawn support from him. They're not printing out his flyers or giving him any financial aid anymore. Like, it's over for him now. Is he done? Like, is he going to be out of the limelight? No, he's going to go on speaking tours and he's going to be. We're going to be hearing about Trump for a lot longer than we heard about Palin. But he's not going to be president.
Gemma?
I feel the same thing. I don't understand what I'd say is, I don't understand what you mean by the question, to make you clarify. And if you're saying, is he done? Like, has he run out of steam? No, this man is a bag of steam. He will continue to go. After he loses, and he could be in a plane that he's flying that dug itself into the crust of the earth, and he's like, I think it's still got some miles in it. Like, he's a moron. He doesn't know how to accurately assess something objectively. It's whatever makes him sound good, he's going with it. But
sorry, what I was going with is his campaign over? Is he done for the presidency?
Yes. I mean, yeah, once like, first of all, when other people were drawing support, I already believed maybe he was. But then when Paul Ryan pulled out, and like, oh man, whenever some of the biggest names were like, no, I can't do that. And like, that's a step too far, is the grabbing women by their pussy. I mean, come on, Trump. Like, yeah. Somewhere in the back of my mind, no, and what it was, this is the most disturbing part. This is the most disturbing part to me. Here was the defense. This drives me goddamn up the wall. Here was the defense they put forth. These Republicans who turned their back on Trump, okay? Are you ready for this? They said, yeah, what he said about women was just too much. I have a daughter and a wife. And I'm like, okay, so everything he said about Muslims, you don't know one of them, so that's fine, you piece of shit? Like, they're also people. Just because you don't have one in your family, like, oh, mess with white women and I'm out. But
weird. Is that a psychological phenomenon that you're familiar with?
Yes, it is. And in fact, that's the greatest predictor of being okay with homosexual marriages back when this was still a big debate, was if someone within 1 to 2 of your social circle had recently come out. And if they had, suddenly the Bible says it's fine. Like, it doesn't. People, you don't know why you do things. Shut the fuck up. Like, oh, it bugs me. Because, like, I know why I did it. I prayed. I was like, bullshit. You've had a friend that came out, didn't you? Well, I guess I did. I'm like, yeah, statistics, bitch. Oh, man. Anyway, I got a little salty.
Those GOP people who went and said that all high and mighty, like, well, you know, oh my goodness, my daughters and my wives and stuff like that. All I kept thinking was, it's because we're women, not because we are attached to you in some kind of way. You shouldn't be upset because you happen to have a wife, a daughter, a mother, whatever. You should be upset he's saying that about human beings.
Yeah.
Also, was this a surprise to anyone? Like, Donald Trump is what I picture when I close my eyes and just think of a sex offender. Like, he's
yeah.
the sleaziest
the
looking
hair
guy.
alone, man.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know why Myers said, like, if Jimmy Carter had been caught saying that, people would be surprised. Donald Trump? No, it's completely in character.
This would be like a sex tape of Bill Clinton leaking at this point. Like, we know he likes women. Like,
Okay, let's wrap it there. I feel like that was a pretty good show. Let's give 30 seconds to everybody involved, starting with our two guests, David and Jeremiah. David, 30 seconds to talk about whatever you want. Go.
If you like the game talk, check out the Game Theory podcast. It's where Jeremiah and I do basically what we just did. We pick a topic and we go for it. If you like the politics stuff and the religion stuff, the God Theory podcast is the place to go. If you like them both, subscribe to both. They're both on iTunes.
I can vouch. Both are freaking excellent. Jeremiah, 30 seconds to talk about whatever you want.
Hitler wasn't wrong. Hitler wasn't wrong. No, if I had to say anything, honestly, it's fuck, man. I don't know. You already put the plug in, so I guess I'd have to just say, life lesson: if you can't understand your opponent's position and give it to them in a way that they would go, huh, yeah, that's exactly what I think, you don't belong anywhere in talking about it at all. And I see this on both sides, really. I mean, because there's people who are like, I don't understand why Bernie bros are upset. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot then. Like, because you never bothered to ask them that, because you don't care. You're happy being biased. Yeah, you know, that's not okay with me. You need to know the position. I understand why people, for example, hate Jews. I get it. And I'm like, okay, fine, I get it, I guess. You know, and then I dismantle it. I'm not saying it's okay to like Jews, but like, for example, I had a client where this guy was like,
understand someone's position without accepting it.
Yeah, like I had a client, an old guy and an old lady, come in for couples therapy, and he goes, and I'm like, "Why are you guys here?" And they're talking for a bit, and he goes, "Well, sometimes she act crazy, so I gotta haul out and slap her." And I was like, "Whoa, okay." And that wasn't my clinical face. My clinical face was like, mm-hmm. But what I asked then was, tell me more about that. And I am not saying that domestic abuse or violence abuse against women is ever okay, but I want to understand why he does it, what fucked up reason he has in his head that justifies that, right? And as long as I can spit it back to him, then I'm like, okay, so sometimes you feel frustrated, she won't let the issue go, and she keeps on nagging.
Whoa,
so
that reflective listening.
Yeah.
And then you just say, and you've got no other tools that you know that would work, so you resort to violence. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, there we go. Okay, I got it. And now let's fucking change that. But now I understand your position.
You let Jeremiah speak overtime. Can I speak overtime now?
Yeah, 3 against 1, man. 3 against
1.
No, but that is why you should check out the David Wong article, because it really gave me insight into a view I don't agree with.
I will do so. And I agree with both of those things. Nicole, anything you want to say at the close?
I guess we haven't set up everything yet for people to contact us all that much. But so if anybody wanted to contact me or follow me on Twitter, it's YaboIxar at the Twitter.
Can you spell that? It's
YABOIK.
a spelling bee.
Yeah, it's YABOIKSAR.
Yeah,
Also the main character from the next Final Fantasy game.
I would be okay with that.
All right. Well, Jeremiah and David, thank you for joining us from your podcast. For Nicole and myself, this has been Games, News, and Glory. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.